Hello everyone, today is 8th of December, now it's 8 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. And I will start with the breaking news with historical developments that are taking place in Syria. According to latest reports, Israeli, US, UK, and Turkish financed, trained, backed armed terrorist groups overrun basically Syria and establish control over their Damascus. So capital of Syria is in hands of these terrorist hordes. Now, according to reports, president of Syria left Damascus. He is planning takeoff in unknown direction. Videos are circulating on internet that TV and radio stations, international airport of Damascus, state institutions, governmental buildings are overrun by these terrorists. Basically, they are in charge now of Syria, and they are claiming that soon they will address people of Syria. Unbelievable stuff, by the way. Unbelievable stuff is taking place. Many people have questions how this is even possible. Where is the Syrian Arab army? How come that Assad's government, Assad's forces collapsed this faster? We can speculate on that, but what is important is actual, factual information, and we see what is happening on the ground. Syrian Arab Army seems like is just non-existent entity because we did not see even single decent battle by Syrian Arab Army during this terrorist offensive. Syrian troops were running away from everywhere, and they are running away from capital also. So therefore, currently situation is that northern, central, and the southern parts of Syria are controlled by these terrorist hordes. One may argue pro-Turkish terrorist hordes. Majority of these terrorists are Turkic speakers. They are not even Arabs, by the way. While Syria is an Arab country mainly, right? So, as I said, northern, central, and southern parts, including Damascus, capital, is under control of these pro-Turkish terrorists, and therefore Syria is quite effectively become a Turkish colony. Northern eastern part of Syria is in control of Kurdish armed groups, although question is for how long. I guess at one point Turkey will turn its attention towards Kurdish formations, and Turkish army will join these pro-Turkish terrorist groups to eliminate Kurdish militia. And also there is a third part on Mediterranean in Latakia and Tartus area, where predominantly Alawites are living, Shiite Muslims. Assad himself is an Alawite, and it is theoretically possible that Alawites, due to risks that these pro-Turkish terrorists will, start a genocide there, basically, of the locals, it is a possibility that Alawites will organize to defend themselves, basically, to give a fight. And if in that case, maybe this part of Syria will eventually even declare independence or become autonomous part of Syria, if Syria as a state will stay on the map. which is definitely under question right now. And well, if Alawites will manage to organize to defend themselves, in that case, theoretically speaking, it is possible that Russia will provide all the necessary military, logistical, political, media support, and in that case, possibly Russian main military bases in Tartus and Latakia areas will stay there. Although it is a possibility, obviously, that after establishing control over the Damascus, these terrorist groups, as I already said, Syrian, Israeli, US, UK, Turkish-controlled, financed, armed, trained terrorist groups may direct their attention first of all towards not towards Kurdish formations but towards Tartus and Latakia. And in that case, well, locals are in big trouble. There is a high risk of genocide of Alawites that might take place, and also Russia may withdraw. Probably Moscow is already preparing plans to rapidly withdraw Russian military personnel, Russian bases, basically from this part of Syria. Historical developments, dear friends, obviously. It is, more time is needed to analyze the situation and have a better understanding what to expect next in this part of the world. But well, situation is clearly devastating for Syrian people. That's for sure, because they're gonna be enslaved now by Turkey, by this pro-Turkish jihadist, extremist terrorist forces, and I guess millions of people will start fleeing Syria. In short, and many of them eventually will end up in Europe. So Europe should embrace itself for another wave of refugees, not just Syrian refugees, but also refugees, not just refugees, Arab refugees from Syria, but also Kurds, because I'm quite sure after Turkey will solidify its control over the central and southern parts of Syria, they will, start beginning suppressing Kurds in northern eastern parts. Meanwhile, Israel, by the way, of course, sees the opportunity to grab some more land from its neighbors, and there are reports are coming in that Israeli forces already entered Syrian territory and they're beginning to establish control over their settlements in the area. Several cities, according to some reports, already been captured there. Of course, Israel will justify its actions by claiming that they are creating some sort of buffer zone. Okay, so, well, there is no more Syria, by the way. Syrian Arab Republic is no longer exists, as far as I understand. Sad page in history of Syria, in history of humanity, I will say, because the entire country is failing into hands of terrorists, man. That's just too bad. But right now here in Russia, of course, main concern is to safely evacuate Russian citizens from Syria, and if necessary, Russian military bases. Yesterday in Qatar, in Doha, capital of Qatar, there was negotiations in Astana format, which is exactly about Syria, and there was meeting between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Foreign Minister of Turkey, and Qatar, and combined statements were made that all sides are for territorial integrity of Syria and that kind of stuff. But when a representative of modern Turkey is making some statements, I don't think anybody can really take it seriously. So therefore, it is obvious that Moscow will probably try to secure Latakia and Tartus area, and maybe Ankara agree on that for now, and if so, then it is possible that these pro-Turkish terrorist groups will not wage offensive towards this direction. Although yet again, can you trust Ankara, by the way? I don't think so. So therefore, obviously, Moscow already probably has in place some plans to conduct a safe and rapid evacuation of Russian citizens, if necessary, Russian military bases also. So yes, what to expect now? What is going to come? More time is needed for sure, but eventually, I think we will observe significant deterioration of the relationships between Russia and Turkey, between Arab countries and Turkey, especially between Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. And I think, by the way, in short term, Turkey may feel victorious that they managed to colonize Syria. But in the long term, this may be the beginning of the end of Turkey itself. That's quite a possibility, by the way, especially if you take in account the Turkish economy is barely breathing right now. And just a little push is needed, and the Turkish economy will just simply collapse, right? So maybe Erdogan made a fatal mistake by allying himself with Israel, with Washington and London, while authorizing this assault on Syria. This action of Turkish government may end up being fatal for Turkey itself in the long run. But now, in short period of time, of course, Turkey will feel itself as victorious. We will probably hear some very strong statements from Ankara, but it's not gonna last long. And me personally, as a Russian citizen, I hope Moscow will cut diplomatic ties with Turkey and stop all the cooperations with this terrorist state, basically. Russia is building nuclear power plant in Turkey. That project should stop immediately. And basically, all the communication should cease with Turkey. And I hope Arab countries, Arab nations will do the same. Turkish leadership wants to be, tool of Israel, tool in hands of Israeli leadership, US leadership, UK leadership. Okay, it's their choice, obviously, but Russia also has a right to react on it, and hopefully Moscow will finally start acting towards Turkey as it should from the beginning, because Turkey is not a friend of Russia, not an ally of Russia. Turkey is a historical enemy of Russia. That's how it is. And that's how it was always, since the creation of Turkey, by the way. So that's the situation, dear friends. Unfortunately, Syrian Arab Republic has fallen, and these jihadists, jihadist groups, these terrorist groups are claiming now that they are official power in Syria. Unfortunately, Western media, Western politicians, public figures went quite far by rebranding, in their attempts to conduct this rebranding of these terrorist groups. They no longer being called the terrorists in the West, by the way. In the Western propaganda, if you notice, they called now rebels, rebels, moderate rebels, opposition. Really? Jihadists that are cutting heads off of people, including kids. head of this main jihadist organization, main terrorist organization, himself was filmed while he was cutting head of a kid, right? And there are these animals, by the way, in the West being called rebels, freedom fighters, political opposition. Unbelievable, man. Level of this, degradation, degeneration of the Western elites is just has no limits. By the way, it's a shame. It's a shame that Western political class fail to this law, and it is a shame that Western media fail this law. And by the way, while BBC was taking interview with this head of this terrorist group, this person was in a wanted list in US still, and there was some 10 million bounty on his head. And BBC went to interview him, right? And he is running around as some sort of Zelensky 2.0 in Syrian version. So some disgrace there, a total disgrace, by the way. I feel sorry for Syrian people, but, Russia tried to help, and Russia did help, by the way, a big time. But after all, Syrians themselves should fight first of all, for their independence, for their freedom. Unfortunately, Syrian Arab Army has disappeared from the battlefield, and if Syrians themselves are not willing to fight, then I don't think it is appropriate to demand from Russia to send their thousands of its citizens to fight and die for Syria, or to ask Iran to send thousands of its citizens to fight and die for Syria, or to ask Lebanon, by the way, or Lebanese Hezbollah to send its thousands of troops and fight and die for Syria. Although, by the way, Lebanon, Iran, Russia, Iraq did help Syrian people big time. Many Russian citizens lost their lives while fighting for freedom of Syrian people. But unfortunately, somehow, government of Syria managed to lose control over their situation, and we are where we are now, right? So let's see what is going to happen next. But unfortunately, Damascus has fallen. Syria has fallen into hands of these terrorists. That's how it is. Let's go through some more news. As I already said, Damascus is in terrorist hands. Assad, president of Syria, at least his plane, by the way, took off in unknown direction. I would not be surprised if he will, arrive in Russia. Or by the way, I would not be surprised also if Bashar al-Assad will arrive in this Latakia or Tartus area and will lead the fight of locals against these terrorist hordes. That might also happen. We will find out, I guess, in next several hours. We will know more where Assad is. According to some reports, his wife and children are in Russia. So maybe he will flee for Russia also. I don't know. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, according to Bloomberg, by the way, not long ago, Assad was asking US for help to stop this terrorist offensive, and for that he was promising to cut all the ties with the resistance forces, including Hezbollah, and also with Iran, which is, I find it difficult to believe that Assad really did that. This is probably an attempt of Western propaganda to blackmail Assad, to present him as a sort of traitor to his allies. I don't think he told US through some backdoor means of communication that he will cut ties with Hezbollah, with Iran, potentially with Russia. No, I refuse to believe in that, but that's the narrative that's being pushed by Western media, at least. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that Iran is evacuating its civilians and their military personnel, its citizens basically, from Syria. Russian embassy in Syria also issued a call for Russian citizens to evacuate immediately, to leave Syria immediately. So yes, and situation is developing, by the way, developing rapidly. And of course, if any major update during the day, I will publish additional updates. I will, actively update my Telegram page and the page on X, anyways. So let's go through some other news now. TASS news agency is reporting that yesterday's meeting between US President-elect Trump, President of France Macron, and leader of Kyiv regime Zelensky lasted about 20 minutes. Trump arrived in France, in Paris, to participate, as far as I understand, in ceremony of opening of that church that burned down a couple of years ago. And he had a meeting with Macron. And then, according to reports, just shortly before his meeting with Macron was made, decision was made that he will meet with Zelensky. Also, probably this was organized by Macron himself. And that meeting lasted 20 minutes. Basically, it was a photo shoot. What they could discuss in 20 minutes, by the way. I mean, nothing on serious scale, right? So the US President-elect is in France to attend the opening ceremony of the Notre Dame Cathedral, restored after the 2019 fire. Yes, that's cathedral. That's why Trump went to France. And yes, he had a meeting with Macron, with Zelensky, and he said that world is going crazy, while commenting developments in this world. And he is correct, by the way. World is clearly going crazy, man. Some crazy stuff, extremely dangerous stuff is happening. And I mean, it is so necessary, by the way, some adequate people to be in charge of US, especially nowadays, by the way, because US is a major superpower, isn't it? And I really hope world would not end up in a world war before 20th of January. And I hope once Trump will get to office, he and his inner circle will behave much more adequately than the previous administration, because I mean, as Trump himself noticed, the world is going crazy, so something has to be done about it, right? And one of the ways is if US is acting more adequately on the world stage, more responsibly. This is definitely needed. Anyways, let's continue. Dear friends, TASS news agency is reporting that according to Russian Defense Ministry, since the beginning of their invasion of the Kyiv regimes and their NATO mercenaries forces into Kursk salient area, into borderline parts of Kursk region, this invading force lost more than 38,000 military personnel, 232 tanks, 169 infantry fighting vehicles, 123 armored personnel carriers, more than 1,200 other type of armored vehicles, more than 1,000 motor cars, more than 300 artillery systems, 40 multi-launch rocket systems, including 11 HIMARS launchers that are used to launch ATACMS missiles also. 13 launchers for air defense systems, and more and much more other types of military equipment. The entire army basically that was trained and armed by NATO was decimated in a Kursk salient area. And of course, Russian troops are improving their positions more and more, not just in this zone of counter-terrorist operation in Kursk salient area, but in the zone of special military operation also on the line of contact. And when it comes to Kursk salient, yesterday reports came in that Russian forces yet again re-established control of the Plekhovo settlement in Kursk salient. This is, of course, a strategical settlement right now in this operation. And well, situation for Kiev regime's forces is desperate there. If on initial stages Kiev regime was deployed most battle capable brigades that it had, now reports are coming in that Kiev regime is sending in basically recently mobilized personnel. So one may argue that majority of these battle capable brigades already been decimated by Russian forces and they lost their battle capability. In any case, we have this report, dear friends, that Russian group of North that is operating also in the Kursk salient area and conducting this counter-terrorist operation targeted units of 13 brigades of Kiev regime. So at least for now, according to Russian Defense Ministry, there is 13 units of 13 brigades of Kiev regime still remain in the Kursk salient area. This is a remnants of brigades, I guess, at this point, because of these immense casualties that Kiev regime has. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that during the last week, or during this week, by the way, it's still Sunday, isn't it now, sir? This week, as a result of fighting in zone of special military operation, Kiev regime lost more than 13,000 military personnel killed and wounded all along the front line. Immense level of casualties on part of Kiev regime for sure. Also, we have this reporter that during the night time, early hours of this morning, Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 46 Ukrainian drones over the Russian regions. Yet another attempt of Kiev regime with active assistance of NATO member states to strike deep inside the Russian territory. No reports about casualties on the ground. For now, if any update on that, of course, I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X page and in the next updates. Also, by the way, RIA Novosti is reporting that according to General Staff of Belarus, decision to deploy a Oreshnik missile system, hypersonic missile system to Belarus, on territory of Belarus, was made by Moscow and Minsk based on hostile steps that NATO is taking in regards to Russia and Belarus, and I guess in a relatively short time Belarus will house not just Russian tactical nukes that already are deployed into Belarus, but Belarus will also host bases for Russian Oreshnik medium-range hypersonic missile systems. We have this report also in Russian media that according to Zelensky, Kiev regime received a second batch of F-16 fighter bombers from Denmark. If you remember, initially there was big hype in Western propaganda, isn't it, that F-16 is gonna arrive and they're gonna do this and that and they're gonna be some sort of game changer. Well, it's several months now, isn't it, that first F-16s being deployed into Kiev controlled territory, and what? Are they game changers? No. And me and many other commentators, by the way, all saying that there is no weapon in hands of Western ruling class that can be game changer, really. It's simple as that. So Russian armed forces already are conducting active hunt on whatever is remained from Air Force of Kiev regime, and I guess this hunt will further intensify to make sure that this additional batch of F-16s that, according to Zelensky, being delivered to Kiev, to Kiev controlled territory, will be destroyed. Also, of course, these planes, should not be underestimated. They are dangerous weapon systems, obviously, quite capable fourth generation fighter bombers. But I mean, Kiev regime already was operating with MiG-29s, by the way, also quite capable fourth generation fighters, right? Kiev regime is still operating with Su-27s. Right, also quite capable fourth generation fighter. So therefore, deployment of F-16s obviously could not be a game changer, because Russia knows how to deal with this type of weapons, right? Also, dear friends, although, I mean, yet again, any planes, by the way, pose significant danger. And I'm afraid the Western ruling class might be in works to conduct large-scale, long-range missile strikes deep into Russian territory with their U.S. ATACMS, ground-launch missiles, ballistic missiles, and also with the massive launch of Storm Shadow and British Storm Shadow and French Scalp EG missiles. And for that massive strike, F-16s might be used also. Currently, Kyiv regime is using, according to reports that they see, Su-24 frontline bombers and MiG-29s that are adapted to carry out such a strike with this Western long-range missiles. And I guess adaptation of F-16s to launch Storm Shadows will be even easier, because it's a Western weapon system, isn't it? F-16 itself. So maybe a large-scale missile strike is in works in the West, and therefore, of course, in any case, this information should be taken seriously, and I'm quite sure Russian side will do whatever is necessary to neutralize this threat, to neutralize any threats that is coming from Kyiv regime and the NATO, basically. RT is meanwhile reporting that EU countries pushing back against the US sanctions on Russian bank. So the EU is pressuring the US to ease sanctions on Russian Gazprom bank, which until recently was used by the bloc's members to pay for Russian natural gas. Bloomberg reported on Friday. The bloc is in talks with the US about mitigation measures after some European governments and companies warned that the sanctions would pose a risk to the region's security of supply, the news agency said, citing anonymous sources familiar with the matter. Well, I don't think US will lift sanctions on Gazprom bank, because US administration already proved that they don't care about energy security of Europe. They don't care about Europe in general, right? They call European states as allies, as the just talking point, right? Otherwise, by judging by actions, one may say that the US is doing quite a lot to basically destroy European economy, to deindustrialize Europe, and to force manufacturers in EU to flee to US, to North America. And that's the process that is taking place, by the way. And that might be one of the reasoning why US targeted Nord Stream pipelines, for example, to make sure that the European economy is and force Brussels and EU member states to impose immense number of sanctions on Russia, including Russian energy sector, to make sure that European economy is no longer competitive, that the European economy is no longer receiving vast volumes of Russian relatively cheap gas, which will obviously force eventually industries in Europe to look for other places where they can continue their business work and produce stuff on competitive prices where energy is cheaper. And by the way, in number of states in US, you may not believe in that when you check, by the way, in number of US states, energy costs 3 to 5 times less than in Europe. It's a big difference, right? It's a huge difference. So not surprisingly, many manufacturers from Europe are moving into US, and this was basically stimulated by US itself. So not really friendly step from Washington, right? But anyways, well, European states made their choice. They allied with Washington in this proxy war against Russia, right? And they are paying, they are facing consequences now. And there is no way US is lifting sanctions on any Russian banks, by the way. It's not happening, right? European countries that are still buying Russian pipeline gas or Russian LNG, they have to find some other ways to pay for supplies, maybe through third parties or something, They can use, I don't know, they can use Bitcoins, man. There are some ways, right? There are some ways. So we will find out. RT is reporting also that meanwhile, it's not just the continental Europe or EU member states that are suffering economically, but also United Kingdom that left European Union. And for example, City of London is declining as a financial center, one of the major financial centers of this world, by the way, for quite a while. The number of companies listed on the London Stock Exchange is decreasing at the quickest pace in more than 10 years, Bloomberg has reported, citing data compiled by their outlet. In 2024, some 45 firms reportedly delisted from the London stock market, 10% more than whole of last year. It's the highest number of companies to leave the exchange since 2010. At the same time, the volume of deals targeting UK corporations have soared 81% this year to more than 160 billion. Data tracked by their news agency also shows that only 11 companies have completed IPOs in London during the current year, rising a total of $1 billion, which is down 11% from the amount raised during the same period in 2023. So one way or another, but it was of course predictable, and it is logical that influence of London, City of London as a major financial center is decreasing, and the same is happening in regards to maybe relatively lesser powerful financial centers in Europe, or Frankfurt, for example. European financial centers, Western financial centers, basically losing position because of the actions of the political leadership of these countries, right? Especially after they freeze Russian assets, some 300 billion in Russian assets, and start stealing this money, right? Right at this point, they are stealing profits from Russian assets. In short, they're gonna steal entire these frozen assets, and the world observes that, isn't it? World is watching, and therefore there is a less and less inflow of investments into Western financial and banking institutions, into Western economies, and the outflow of assets increasing, right? So therefore, I mean, why should anybody expect that London, City of London, will be in a better place or better shape after what is done by Western ruling class? Of course, they will decline. It's just logical. And I don't think this process can be stopped at this point. And dear friends, let's check out for any breaking news before I end this update. So RT has this headline here that jihadists claim to take power in Syria. Islamists entered Damascus and declared it free, asserting President Bashar Assad has fled their capital. That's information from RT. Let's check RIA Novosti for any breaking news. Well, nothing that I did not mention in today's in this update. Well, Prime Minister of Syria is stating that he is ready to transfer power peacefully. Seems like he's still in Syria, by the way. His name is Muhammad Ghazi. So he's still in Syria, and he's stating that he's ready to transfer power peacefully. What he can do, by the way. Syrian Arab army has disappeared, so no one is really asking him. These jihadists just talk power, right? These terrorist groups just talk power. Vzgliad, let's see on Vzgliad if there is any update. Some breaking news, no. And that's it, dear friends. That's it for now. I guess I reported almost everything when it comes to some main topics, main news. I will add that well, Kommersant is reporting that the US allocated for Kyiv regime and another military aid package. This time, this aid package worth is 988 million US dollars. Well, is anybody surprised, by the way, that Biden's administration is trying to allocate for Kyiv regime as much money and weapons as possible before Trump is taking office? I'm not surprised at all. But anyways, dear friends, this is it for this morning's update. Hopefully you will find it interesting, useful and informative, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. This is the only way we can at least try to influence immensely aggressive algorithm, especially on YouTube. Although of course likes and comments are helpful on Rumble also, undoubtedly. And for very same reason, if you can, please share information about my channels with your friends in real life or on internet, on any of the platforms that you are actively using. And finally, if you like my work, or if you think I deserve to stay in this field of news and political commentary and continue my work, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal or Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a number of extra content, bonus videos on a regular basis. All the links, including my crypto wallet address, is under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.